I'm Leslie Short, owner of the Cavu Group and the host of Visibility Unlimited Spotlight, our video alternative to our podcast, Visibility Unlimited. Please welcome my guest, Elena Romero. I'm excited to have you here. You will be excited to meet her. She is a journalist as well as a marketing and communications professor. Elena, welcome.
Great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Now, look, this is not a formal interview. This is us having a chat. So, our topic of conversation will be what we've usually speak about. What have companies learned about their culture, and what are they going to do as they transfer back into office spaces? Any idea what that's going to look like? I know this is topic of conversation across the board right now. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, most organizations have been working on kind of a back to the office, plan for at least the past 6 months.
Mhm.
Uh, in my own experiences, it's talking about uh, being vaccinated, what happens if you're not vaccinated, the spacing and configurations of offices, as well in my case, classrooms. So a lot of that is really to get people comfortable with the idea of walking back into the office. There's still quite a bit of hesitation. There's still a bit of unfamiliarity in terms of this is a new experience.
Right.
But most organizations have been doing excessive planning to make sure that everything could hopefully go right back to how it was, or at
Okay.
least from a business perspective.
So even that's not going to be reality. And I think if
Of
companies
course.
need to understand, they're not going to hit that light switch and everyone's going to come back and sit down at their desk and be like, okay, I'm cool. There's dividers. There's this. Here's what I know that there's two sides to this coin. One, you have people that are so excited to go back, right? You have others that are not so excited to go back, others that were excited to go back, but now with all this newness of variations happening, no, it's really an uncertain black hole. And I think if companies don't have those conversations with their staff, recognizing both sides of this coin on how people are feeling, I don't care how much planning you have, it's not going to roll out the way you think it is if you don't actually speak to your people. You know,
Well,
as the
it's a lot more complicated than having a fabulous plan on paper. So many things have been put on paper, and then when you put it into execution, it doesn't work out that way. There are too many still unknown variables.
Mhm.
Uh, And one of the things that I think keeps coming up is this idea of working remotely.
Yes.
And we have seen both pros and cons to being in that kind of work environment. The reality is, as much as we'd like to kind of completely shut the door on remote working, that will more than likely be part of the new work environment to some degree or another. So
Agreed.
that way, if in fact, numbers go up, things unexpectedly occur, we can still conduct business productively, but in a different environment. You know, I would say what we're experiencing now is a bit different because it's more health related. But think about the changes in various industries. Music moving from cassette to CD to digital. Businesses moving from brick and mortar stores to being online.
Oh,
There's
yes.
always fear. There's always hesitation. It's not an either or. It's not we work face to face or we work remotely. In fact, it should be both. And
Well, think
that
about this.
balance, I think, is something the organization will figure out.
Absolutely. So think about this. Before this happened, and I had this conversation when I did my disability conversation, where companies were like, nope, no one can work remote. Can't happen, doesn't happen, won't happen. Then can't hire anyone with a disability because we aren't set up for you to work remotely. Now we have recognized, as you said, that it is possible that I believe that there will be this hybrid of what can be for the future, because you've realized, for one company I know that I work with, they've said, wow, we've actually been much more productive. Here's the flip side of that. Are we being more productive because we have more hours that people feel that we're available? So that you're texting someone or emailing at 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock at night? So where are those boundaries of culture that's going to happen when we do go back into an office? You know, I mean, have
Well,
you had
to
any of
talk
those
about that remote
conversations?
experience, I mean, and most corporations, in my own experiences and others, were really
Mhm.
kind of micromanaging, kind of almost in denial that people were actually working. So there were a lot of excessive, demands, right?
Mhm.
And it's about managing expectations, both on the part of the corporation and on the part of the employee. But are companies listening? I mean, think about
Right.
pre-pandemic, we were going through several movements, right?
Mhm.
There's been a cultural shift, so
Right.
let's not forget that. That also has to be considered while we're doing the opening and going back into our physical workspaces.
I've always said from day one, I'm going to keep saying it. Maybe someone will hear me. I don't know. Mental health aid, DEI expert past just what is an event, and a grief counselor needs to be on call for companies, because if you honestly think people are going to walk back in and not be either triggered or want to have these conversations while they're getting back to work, then you are missing the opportunity to build a culture for which we are in at this moment. And I think that's what is missing.
Well,
You know,
just the conversation of, mental wellness is still a topic that's pretty much still considered a taboo in many communities.
right.
So to bring that topic of conversation into the workplace becomes a bit sticky. From the employee standpoint, they may not feel comfortable to share that information, even if they need that, afraid of retaliation, even though they are protected. Um,
I'm
Again,
going to tell you, people are requesting it. I have employees that are coming to me asking, well, I have the conversation with their senior leadership. Will they actually be able to explain what's in the handbook? Are there apps involved? Who's getting paid? So that it's a company wide. So if they want to use it, it's available. Like that stigma, I think, is shifting now because people know that I hate to keep using the word unprecedented, but this is an unprecedented way to be working and living.
well, I would love to be optimistic and say that corporations are open and are doing the right thing. I think it's a mixed bag. You have some who are, really taking a firm stance and really trying to do what's best for the corporation and the employee.
Mhm.
And then there are others that may not see the same types of necessities as true corporate needs at the moment. So,
Right.
how hard they're going to go in offering certain services, I think depends on the sector and industry. But nonetheless, as you've mentioned, it's not something we can ignore. We've seen it on the education level that during the remote learning experience, many
Mhm.
young children have had to cope with being at home and going to school at home and not having the same type of social interaction with
Right.
classmates, and many young children needing services. So it would be not surprisingly that also parents and adults need that same type of support because they've gone through, in essence, we've all gone through a very traumatic experiences. We
That's
were to put on a happy face while our family members were getting sick, or our
mhm.
neighbors, or people dying, the world changing,
Teachers,
and we were
schools.
all to
Yes.
expect to work as normal as possible.
Hmm. Absolutely. And think about this with companies, and they're starting to see it. Employees have taken a certain type of power now because they figured out we can work at home. I can get this stuff done. I don't want to work nonstop with family and this, that, and the other, but I can do it. And I want to work for a company or organization or a brand that is focused on making sure I have opportunities to grow, opportunities of a balance. And so, what is happening? The mass exodus of how employees are employees are now leaving companies looking for other companies that are giving them more what they feel that they deserve. And so if
The very
companies,
way
go ahead.
the very way that companies, the very way that companies look to build their brands and customer loyalty
Mhm.
should be the very same approach they take with their employees, right?
Yes,
So those very brand pillars of trust and value are very, very important. An employee who does not feel valued cannot be productive. That's as
mhm.
basic 101 business sense. The more you invest in your employee, the more you're going to get in return. So,
Absolutely.
it's again back to that return on investment. Your investment are your employees, right?
I
The
always say
better
the
you take
people.
care of them, the easier it is to get
Mhm.
business as normal. And I think
And
that's one of the things that corporations need to look at and address is what haven't we done, right? What did we do well? What
right.
did we completely miss? Because we're entering a new terrain.
And what can we do better as we bring everyone back? Have the conversations. Now I know companies aren't going to run on everything that an employee says, but and don't send out a survey. Stop with the try to have a real conversation. Like what have we all learned from this? And what can we do to make this transition a transition so that we come back and continue to be productive? You know, because if we look at it again with the light switch and we're all going to run back in and sit down and we're going back to what we were 18 months ago, 15 months ago, there's not one of us that is the same. Even if life was O'Reilly, like you didn't lose someone, that you didn't have this, and something great happened along the way, it's still not the same. That same social interaction that the kids were missing, adults were missing as well. And so to step back and like you said, we need to take a 360 on how do we shift this, a mind shift, a culture shift, in order for us to be productive. And if you think that you cannot come back and have conversations around this pandemic, around what happened, during this racial justice moment, around what happened just on being inside, even if you think you had them and you checked all those boxes because you did that Zoom staff meeting and you think you did all those touch points, there will still be conversation needed when you come back.
Yeah, I mean, are they really seeing their employees as individuals, right?
Well, I was going to say,
And
can we stop calling them employees? Do you see your people? The
well, that
people
gets more
doing it.
technical, right? Because if you see them as human, then that means you have to involve emotions.
How
And are
about
they
that?
willing to care, which goes one step further, which goes beyond caring? Do you love your employee, right?
Yeah, I'm
And
not going to say all of that.
that level of commitment is
Right.
usually not found in
No.
corporations. It's not. So again, you've got to be honest in
Hmm.
knowing what level of care are you willing to put in
There
with the
you go.
people who work for you.
100%. And you know what I always say, because I wrote it in the book. What is your added value as leadership? And when you figure out what your own personal added value is, and then your added value to the conversation with the people that work with you, then it shifts how much you care. And I'm not saying give me a muffin. I'm saying, do we have the conversation again about promotions and policies and procedures and how we're going to move things in a new direction? Um, because if you don't have that, then you're not invested in your people. And you just can't be invested in your product and not be invested in your people. And like you said, that mission and vision that you want to give to your consumers, that mission and vision that's up on the wall in the office that you probably will not walk back into, right? Because you moved to let that go, still must actually come alive now. You just
The
can't
best
leave it on the
advice
wall.
I give to corporation is to really manage expectations, right? This idea that we could just jump out the gate and everything's going to be just the way it was is really impossible, right? So
Yeah.
you've got to take baby steps. And, first things first is making sure that those that are coming back are ready to come back, right?
Hmm.
And have you put things in place to make them confident in coming back?
Right.
And then seeing where you need to make adjustments. and add new programs, right? And
Mhm.
incentives. Again, workshops, additional people and resources, like you mentioned in health and wellness, for example.
Mhm.
And it's not a one size fits all.
No,
We have to monitor this COVID pandemic very closely. We are not out of the gate yet. We
no.
do need to be productive and still conduct business, but at what cost and at what expense? So,
And
if we make sound decisions early on, we can avoid drastic pitfalls later on down the road.
I agree with you. And give your people, for those that don't understand people, if you just joined us, your staff, um, the equity to figure out how they want to say hello to their colleagues. If they're not comfortable with a hug, I'm always like, do a pound, do a elbow, do a Wakanda across the chest, do a foot. Be able to give them that. Say to them, your comfort level of how you want to interact is important to us. And you have an option how that works for you. Just be respectful that everyone's coming at it from a different view. You want your mask on, put your mask on. If you don't want a mask, but be able to give them the opportunity to speak up. Because if you don't, that's going to be a problem as well. You know? But I like what you said. You have to, one, have a commitment to shift. How about that? Have a
Mhm.
commitment to shift. Wow. Elena, I always love speaking with you. I hope this tidbit that companies, organizations, and brands will be able to take away what you shared. I look forward to having you back as a guest on many other topics. And I always would like to thank everyone for joining, for watching, or for listening. Please keep expanding beyond your current culture.